It was just another Tuesday. I was driving home from work, cruising down the highway, probably thinking about what to make for dinner. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky with those typical California golds and pinks. I had my music on, window down, just enjoying the end of the day, and then I noticed it. The color was wrong. It wasn't the warm, gentle glow of sunset. It was a fierce, angry orange, like the whole sky had been set on fire. At first I thought it was just a weird sunset, maybe some strange cloud formation. But the air started to change. A smell hit me, sharp and acrid, the unmistakable scent of burning wood, of smoke. It got thicker, fast. I could taste it on my tongue. The beautiful orange glow wasn't beautiful anymore. It was menacing. It was smoke, a massive, thick plume of it, and it was swallowing the sky whole. Traffic started to slow down, then crawl, then stop. Everyone was craning their necks, trying to see what was happening. On the radio, the news bulletin broke through the music. A wildfire had erupted in the hills just a few miles away, and it was moving with terrifying speed, pushed by the Santa Ana winds. The highway I was on, my normal route home, was now on the edge of the evacuation zone. The scene around me was surreal, like something out of a disaster movie. The sky was no longer blue or even orange. It was a dark, soulless gray-brown. Ash started to fall like a morbid kind of snow, dusting my windshield. I had to roll up my window, but the smell of smoke was already inside the car, making my eyes water and my throat burn. The sun, which had been setting just moments before, was now just a tiny, blood red dot struggling to pierce through the thick haze. It was midday darkness, an artificial twilight created by disaster. Looking to my right, towards the hills, I could see it. A hellish, pulsating glow at the base of the mountains. Flames, hundreds of feet high, were licking the sky, devouring everything in their path. It was a terrifyingly mesmerizing sight. The sheer power of it was unbelievable. You see these things on the news, but to witness it in person, to feel the heat even from miles away, to breathe the air choked with the remains of a forest, it's a completely different experience. It's primal. Cars started turning around, trying to find alternate routes, creating chaos on the freeway. Horns were blaring, but it all sounded muffled through the thick, smoky air. There was a sense of collective panic, a quiet, creeping fear that you could feel in the stillness between the honks. You look at the faces in the cars next to you, and you see your own fear reflected back. We were all just trying to get home, and suddenly, home felt very, very far away. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, trapped in my metal box, watching the sky burn. It was a profound reminder of how quickly things can change. 1 minute, you're in your normal routine, and the next, you're face to face with the raw, untamable power of nature. It makes you feel incredibly small, incredibly vulnerable. The fire didn't care about our plans, our jobs, our lives. It just was. Eventually, police and fire trucks started appearing, sirens wailing, directing traffic off the highway. Following the line of cars, I was guided down side streets I'd never seen before, through neighborhoods shrouded in the same apocalyptic haze. Every radio station was giving updates. The fire had jumped the highway behind us. If we had been there, just 30 minutes later, we would have been trapped. That thought sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the air temperature. But I been gawai. I kept looking in my rearview mirror. The monstrous cloud of smoke loomed over the entire city, a dark monument to the day's chaos. It took me 3 hours to make a 30-minute drive home. When I finally walked through my front door, I was covered in a fine layer of ash, and the smell of smoke clung to my clothes and hair. The sky outside my window remained a sickly orange for the rest of the night. That evening, I wasn't just a commuter. I was a witness to the fragility of our daily lives, and the awesome, terrifying beauty of a world that is much wilder than we often remember. It's a day I will never forget. It changed my perspective on what's important, and reminded me never to take a simple, clear-skied drive home for granted. Thanks for listening to my story. Stay safe out there, and if you have a similar experience, I'd be interested to read about it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. The piercing shriek of the emergency alert system rips through the city's hum. Every phone, every television, every public announcement speaker blares. The same terrifying message. This is not a drill. A critical threat has been identified. Evacuate immediately. Follow designated routes now. Chaos erupts in a heartbeat. The rhythm of daily life shatters. In offices, half-typed emails are abandoned. In coffee shops, cups are dropped, their contents spilling like a dark premonition. School bells ring, not for dismissal, but for dispersal. The order is simple, yet impossible. Leave everything. I was in my apartment on the 22nd floor, watching the morning news, when my phone vibrated off the table. The jarring, electronic tone was unmistakable. I'd heard it in tests, but this was different. The text on the screen was blunt, devoid of comfort. Evacuate. My building's fire alarm joined the chorus, a relentless wail that echoed in the stairwell. Grabbing my keys and my wallet was pure instinct, my mind said. My bug-out bag, the one I'd depocated half-jokingly after watching too many disaster movies, was under my bed. I pulled it out, its weight a sudden, terrifying reality. Inside, water, a first aid kit, a flashlight, protein bars. It felt pathetically inadequate. Looking out my window was like watching a scene from one of those movies. The streets below, usually a predictable grid of flowing traffic, had ceased. A tangle of metal and blaring horns. People were pouring out of buildings, a frantic river of humanity. Some were running, faces etched with a primal fear. Others stood frozen, looking at the sky as if expecting an answer. What were we running from? A chemical spill? A dam break? An attack? The alert didn't say. The not knowing was a special kind of poison. I joined the exodus down the emergency stairs. It was a slow, claustrophobic crawl. The air was thick with the scent of fear and the sound of nervous chatter, crying children, and unanswered questions. What's happening? Where are we supposed to go? Did you see the sky? No one had answers. We were all just actors in a play we hadn't rehearsed, pushed onto the stage by an unseen director. Once outside, the scale of the panic was overwhelming. The city's symphony had been replaced by a cacophony of sirens, shouts, and car alarms. The designated evacuation routes were already impassable. Gridlock. Total, absolute gridlock. People started abandoning their cars, grabbing what they could and joining the swelling tide of pedestrians. This is the moment when the veneer of civilization gets thin. You see the best and the worst of people. I saw a man help an elderly woman who had fallen, shielding her from the panicked crowd. But I also saw people shoving, fighting their way through, their survival instincts overriding every shred of courtesy. It's a terrifying thing to witness. The moment when your neighbor becomes just another obstacle. I decided the highways were a death trap. My best bet was to move on foot, sticking to side streets, trying to head west, away from the city center. Every intersection was a new scene of desperation. People were trying to use their phones, but the networks were completely jammed. No calls, no internet. We were cut off, isolated within a crowd of millions. Communication, our most basic tool, was gone. Hours passed. The initial adrenaline surge gave way to a bone-deep weariness. The sun beat down, and my water supply was already dwindling. The distant wail of sirens was a constant, haunting soundtrack. The threat was still unknown, a formless monster lurking just over the horizon. Was it getting closer? Were we running in the right direction? Looking back, the city skyline I called home was silhouetted against an unnervingly orange sky. A strange, unnatural plume of smoke was beginning to rise from the downtown core. That was our answer, and it was more terrifying than the not knowing. We weren't just we were running for our lives from something that was actively consuming our world. The race had just begun. If you ever find yourself in a situation like this, the most important thing is to stay calm and aware. Have a plan. Even a basic one. Know where to go and have a small kid ready. It could make all the difference. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And don't forget to follow 4 more stories. Through the thick, choking smoke, a piercing scream echoes from the heart of a blazing inferno. The house is a raging furnace, timbers groaning and collapsing under the immense heat. Outside, a line of battle-hardened firefighters stands, their faces grim. One of them, a a seasoned veteran, shouts over the roar of the flames. It's too dangerous. We can't go in. The structure is unstable. It could come down at any second. To enter now would be a suicide mission. The heat is so intense, it feels like it's melting the very air. Every instinct, every bit of training screams to stay back, to let the water cannons do their work from a safe distance. But then, another cry cuts through the chaos. A child's voice, filled with terror. For one firefighter, a young man named Alex, that sound changes everything. The protocols, the captain's orders, the sheer wall of fire in front of him, it all fades into the background. He looks at his captain, his eyes pleading. There's a kid in there. Before anyone can stop him, he pulls his mask tight, checks his oxygen tank, and charges forward. He disappears into the black smoke, a lone figure against an impossible wall of fire. The other firefighters can only watch, their hearts in their throats. Each second feels like an eternity. The roar of the fire seems to mock their helplessness. They train for this, they live for this, but sometimes the rulebook gets thrown into the flames. Inside, it's a hell's visibility is near zero. The air is thick with toxic fumes, and the heat is unbearable, searing through his protective gear. Alex is crawling on his hands and knees, sweeping the floor, shouting, "Hello, can you hear me? Where are you?" He follows the faint sound of whimpering, moving deeper into the collapsing structure. Debris rains down from the ceiling. A burning beam crashes just inches from his head, showering him with sparks. A precision driven by a force stronger than fear. He knows the house is coming down, but the thought of leaving a child behind is unimaginable. He finally finds her, a little girl huddled in a closet under a blanket, crying. "I'm here to help you," he says, his voice muffled by the mask but full of calm reassurance. He scoops her up into his arms, wrapping her in a fire-resistant blanket he carries for just such an emergency. "Hold on tight," he tells her. "We're going to get out of here." Now, the real challenge begins. Finding the way back out, the path he took in is gone, blocked by a collapsed section of the roof. He's disoriented. His air supply is running low, and every exit seems to be engulfed in flames. He can feel the little girl trembling in his arms. He has to stay calm, for her sake. Thinking fast, he remembers the layout of the house from the initial assessment. There should be a window on the side. He pushes through a room where the floor is starting to give way, the fire licking at his boots. He finally reaches the window, but it's barred. He uses his axe, smashing at the metal with all his remaining strength. The metal groans and finally gives way. He carefully passes the child through the opening to his waiting colleagues, who have brought a ladder to the side of the house. Just as he's about to climb out himself, the floor beneath him collapses. He dangles for a terrifying moment, his hands gripping the windowsill, before his team grabs him and pulls him to safety. They all fall to the ground, coughing and gasping for air, but they are alive. The little girl is safe. The crowd that had gathered erupts in cheers. Alex, covered in soot and exhausted, is a hero. This is the reality for firefighters, people who run into danger when everyone else is running out. Their courage is a light in the darkest of times. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories. This story starts on a deserted highway in the dead of night. Picture this. A man is driving home, tired after a long day. The road is empty, just the hum of his engine and the endless stretch of asphalt ahead. Suddenly, the night is torn apart by a blinding flash of light, followed by a deafening boom that shakes his car. Up ahead, a fireball erupts, painting the dark sky in terrifying shades of orange and red. A car has crashed, and it's engulfed in flames. His first instinct, like many of ours would be, is to keep going. It's dangerous. What if the car explodes again? It's not his problem, right? He has a family waiting for him at home. He tells himself to drive on, to call 911 from a safe distance. His foot presses the gas pedal, and for a split second, he's putting the horrific scene in his rearview mirror. But then, something stops him. A thought, a feeling, a nagging voice in his head. What if someone is still inside? He slams on the brakes. His heart is pounding, a frantic drum against his ribs. Every rational part of his brain is screaming at him to get out of there, to save himself. But he can't. He can't just leave. The image of the burning car is seared into his mind, and with it, the terrifying possibility of a life slipping away while he does nothing. He looks at his phone, then back at the fire. A call for help might be too slow. Every second counts. In that moment, a decision is made, a decision that defies logic and fear. He throws his car into reverse, tires screeching on the pavement as he speeds back toward the inferno. Soba leaves his own door wide open and runs. He runs without a second thought for his own safety. The heat is immense, a physical wall pushing against him, trying to force him back. The smoke is thick and choking, filling his lungs, making his eyes water uncontrollably. The roar of the fire is deafening. He reaches the twisted wreck. The driver's side is a crumpled mess, and the flames are getting closer to the cabin. Through the shattered window, he sees a figure slumped over the steering wheel, motionless. Adrenaline surges through him, overpowering the fear. He pulls on the door handle, but it's jammed shut. He pulls again and again, his muscles straining, his knuckles scraping against the hot metal. It won't budge. The fire's getting hotter, licking at the edges of the doorframe. Time is running out. He looks around desperately and spots a piece of metal debris from the crash. He grabs it, and using all his strength, he smashes the window. Glass shatters everywhere. He reaches inside, through the jagged opening, ignoring the sharp edges cutting into his arm. He fumbles for the seatbelt buckle. His fingers are clumsy, shaking, but he finally gets it undone. Now, for the hardest part, he has to pull the person out. He grabs the stranger under the arms and pulls. The unconscious body is heavy, dead weight. He plants his feet, grits his teeth, and pulls with everything he has. The smell of burning rubber and gasoline is overwhelming. The flames are just inches away now. He gives one last, desperate heave, and the person comes free. He stumbles backward, dragging the stranger away from the car, collapsing onto the pavement, a safe distance away. Justo as the car's gas tank explodes in a massive fireball, sending a shock wave across the highway. He shields the stranger's body with his own, lying there, gasping for air, covered in soot, with sirens wailing in the distance. He looks at the face of the person he just saved. A complete stranger. In a world that can sometimes feel cold and disconnected, this man chose to turn around. He chose to run toward the danger, not away from it. He risked everything for someone he didn't know, reminding us all of the incredible power of compassion and the extraordinary courage that lies within ordinary people. If this story touched you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more incredible true stories. And remember to share it, because acts of kindness like this deserve to be seen. Thanks for watching. Imagine walking down your street on a totally normal day. The sun is shining, kids are playing, everything feels right. Now, picture this. Out of nowhere, you hear a terrifying groan, the sound of wood splintering and twisting under immense pressure. You look up, and your neighbor's house is literally starting to buckle. What do you? Most of us would freeze, pull out our phones, or maybe scream for help. But one man did something absolutely extraordinary. This is the story of a true, everyday hero. It all happened last Tuesday in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The kind of place you'd never expect anything dramatic to happen. An old two-story house, which had been under renovation, suddenly began to show signs of catastrophic failure. The support beams were giving way, and the entire structure was groaning, ready to pancake at any second. Neighbors who were outside watched in horror, frozen in place, not knowing what to do. The fire department had been called, but everyone knew time was running out. Seconds felt like hours. Inside that collapsing house was an 87-year-old woman, Mrs. Gable. She was hard of hearing and lived alone, completely unaware of the imminent danger. Her life was hanging by a thread, and she didn't even know it. But just as all hope seemed lost, a figure burst into action. It was one of her neighbors, a man named Mark. He wasn't a firefighter, a police officer, or a trained rescuer. He was a regular guy, a software developer who was working from home. He saw the house start to shift, and he knew Mrs. Gable was inside. Without a moment of hesitation, Mark sprinted towards the house. The front door was jammed shut from the frame warping. He didn't give up. He threw his shoulder against it once, twice, and on the third try, The wood splintered, and the door flew open. Eraninsit screaming her name. The house was making deafening noises now. Dust and plaster rained down from the ceiling. He found Mrs. Gable in her living room, confused by the noise, trying to get up from her favorite armchair. Mark knew he had no time to explain. "Hey, Hustzeit. We have to go. Now." He scooped the frail woman up into his arms. She was surprisingly light, he later recalled, as he turned and ran back towards the door he had just broken down. The ceiling above the living room completely caved in. The very spot where Mrs. Gable had been sitting just moments before was now buried under a mountain of debris. He didn't look back. He just kept running, his heart pounding in his chest. He burst out of the front door, carrying her, and ran across the lawn just as the entire house folded in on itself with a deafening roar. A huge cloud of dust and splinters billowed into the air. He had made it out, with literally no time to spare. If he had been 5 seconds slower, neither of them would have survived. The neighbors, who had been watching the whole thing unfold, were just stunned into silence before erupting into cheers and applause. They had just witnessed a real-life miracle. When the dust settled and the emergency services arrived, they found Mark sitting on the curb, catching his breath, with a stunned but safe Mrs. Gable beside him. Paramedics checked them both over. Miraculously, apart from a few scratches and being covered in dust, they were both unharmed. A local news reporter who arrived on the scene rushed over to Mark, camera rolling, and asked him the question on everyone's mind. "Why did you do it? Why did you risk your life like that?" And this is the part of the story that gives me chills. Mark, looking genuinely puzzled by the question, just shrugged and said something so simple, yet so powerful. He said, "I just did what anyone should." He didn't see himself as a hero. He didn't think he did anything special. He just saw a neighbor in trouble and knew he had to help. In his mind, it wasn't a choice. It was a responsibility. It was the human thing to do. This story is an incredible reminder that heroes aren't just in the movies. They are our neighbors, our friends, the ordinary people around us who, in a moment of crisis, choose to do something extraordinary. They don't do it for fame or recognition. They do it because it's the right thing to do. Mark's humility and bravery are a powerful lesson for all of us. He reminds us that we all have the capacity within us to be a hero for someone else. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that celebrates the best of humanity. What would you have done in that situation? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe and be good to each other.